And the color analysis checks done at step 2 of color analysis, where home season is determined, like winter, summer, spring, and autumn, help with confirming step 1, which is defining if you lean cool or warm, and step 3, which is ultimately deciding your undertone and best color analysis palette. In this video, I'm dusting off some older footage I have of me doing an in-person color analysis. Thank you so much to this client who at the time gave me permission to capture this video and share it with you. Step 1 of color analysis, to recap, looks at cool versus warm colors on somebody, but let's say it wasn't an obvious thing in terms of color analysis checks. Perhaps it was a bit trickier to decide. I would move on to step 2 of color analysis on the client and look at the cool home seasons versus warm home seasons, because that ultimately can confirm whether someone leans cool or warm. Here's a look at summer, which is cool undertone, versus spring on this client. Spring is warm undertone. On the summer side, I see disconnection, her face going unsmooth, a bit grayed, and what have you. There's much more flow and connection. There's no cutting off at the jawline on this side, and her skin is brighter, smooth, more even. I call this situation over here the bobblehead. It's like the fabric is cutting off the person at the jawline and the head is disconnected. Saying that with all due respect to this drop-dead gorgeous client, I'm literally just looking at color analysis checks here. Here's a look at autumn, which is fully warm undertone, versus spring on this person, which is again fully warm undertone. In terms of color analysis checks, the autumn colors over here aren't fully off, and I take note of that, but her skin appears a bit more red, shadowed. There's a bit of heaviness happening at the jawline, versus over here, the jawline is lifted, her skin is brighter and smoother. I'm not saying though that this color is perfect. It's not giving the ultimate wow, but it is better than the summer and the autumn. I've skipped winter for this video in the interest of time, and it's way off for her coloring. I will also add that coming into this appointment, this client thought perhaps that she was a summer and perhaps a muted summer. What is the muted summer palette? It is the palette between summer and autumn. And so these color comparisons I've shown you in essence prove that she's not a muted summer, because summer and autumn are not better than spring on her. Each color analysis step, we look at what is better, and in terms of what is better, the spring is better in terms of color analysis checks in the system I use. And again, it's not perfect, but when we looked at the flows of spring, this client ended up being a warm spring, which is the palette between spring and autumn. And so I said here that the autumn colors weren't fully off, they weren't bad, but the winner was spring over here. And that's because her coloring ultimately was aligned with the warm spring palette, which has some autumn qualities. In the color analysis system I use, there's palettes called flow palettes, and these are palettes that rest between two color analysis seasons. And so at step 2, looking at home season can help, because if two home seasons you're looking at are a bit more difficult to make a call, it's possible that you're a palette between those two home seasons. So another example of that would be, say, bright spring. Somebody who's a bright spring, winter colors and spring colors would be of a closer call. We'll also add that if you're looking at step 1 and cool versus warm is a trickier call, and in step 2, if the cool home seasons versus the warm home seasons are a trickier call, in step 3 as well, I use the information gathered at step 2 to help validate perhaps if somebody is a flow season and ultimately in a neutral undertone range category. Hope this helps. I've included a picture of this client smiling because she's absolutely drop dead gorgeous, and I wanted to show her in a smiley light. Oh, I forgot one thing. Somebody commented on a video of mine
I think it was a couple videos ago of a true warm where they asked a fabulous question, because I've said sometimes that what people think is ash hair color, I look at and I don't see ash at all. And this would be a great example of that as well. When I look at her hair color here in inside light, I don't easily see ash. There's a warm glow to her hair color. In fact, when she's surrounded by her spring colors and ultimately the warm spring colors, it brings out more of that warm glow.
Yay, warm spring and having checks and balances in the color analysis process.